our Revati madam, Ashwini madam, my colleagues, Chaurav, Bhagavan, everyone, so kind and all esteemed faculty, my dear students, ladies and gentlemen. I stand before you today with a very good feeling because we enjoyed great hospitality, unthinkable. I would say your volunteers being leaders in the making. They showed they ushered us from the airport, and every 5 minutes they are sending text and asking how are you comfortable, and keeping us reminded of all the event and everything. Thank you so much. Even I must Sri Lanka is a nation of hospitality. You might heard about from the time immemorial, 1,000, 2,000 years ago. I think then this Pune law school, Shankarao law school children, kids, I would say kids, the students are also equally good, even better than ours, I think, because you showed that level of hospitality. It's my and of course my teacher, Madam Professor Vasanta Senimiratne, and my senior colleague and director, Center for the Study of Human Rights, Dr. Hakim. We all came uh, to attend this international conference. And as you know today, international conferences and also international collaborations matter a lot in the academic institutions. And we cherish, and also uh, we are in need of more and more international collaborations, because university ranking is very much measured through international collaboration, exchange of staff and students. So I think that's sir, this now there's a paradigm shift in academic institutions, and in particular legal education in the world, around the world. That's why this venture, that collaboration partnership that you are going to have with, you are having and going to expand, deepen further with the European, because I am a product of the Max Planck Institute. I studied at the University of Munich and the Max Planck Institute of Innovation, one of the best in the world. So I know the value of it. And when my learned colleague Professor Pradeep mentioned, I know the places also. I have traveled to most of the parts in the world, and I also invite you to explore the world and also deepen your understanding and hone your skills. That is your future. I think these motivated students, when I see your eyes shining, and also the with that you have a lot of expectation, and you have to serve your nation. You have to take care of your parents, and you have to have a great future. And we are there to help in every step that you put forward. And also I extend warm welcome you all to Sri Lanka, one of the fascinating nation, fascinating country, golden beaches, beautiful landscape, and you should come. Of course, in that sense, our environment and greeny environment is far more better than yours in that respect. But I ask you, we all are same nations. It's Sri Lanka is also like your country, and we have the same feeling. It's your family. You are going to see your family background. Please visit Sri Lanka and my law faculty, one and only law faculty, under the University Grants Commission. There are private institutions, but my faculty is now celebrating 79th year. This is the 78th year, which was established by a long time ago by Sir Ivor Jennings, the architects of the constitutions, you might have heard about. And then the law faculty celebrated 75th year few years ago. And I think coincident with that, we had our Pune family members visiting us, and with a lot of students. And now we are having more and more collaborations. Many Amity Law School visited recently with about 35 students for a summer school. Likewise, I think we should think about in future to have more and more student staff collaboration, and that will bring both our institutions will bring strength to strength, and that is what we expect. And having said these remarks, I think it's this 2 day conference, international conference in the real sense, truly international conference, and the quality of the speeches, papers, and also the organization. Uh, I would say 100%. You had the best people, best experts, legal luminaries in this country and around the world coming and giving you, enlightening your legal minds. So that was fascinating. Thank you ever so much. We are going to also listen to our one of the legal luminaries in the South Asian and in Asia, sir. So I don't want to take further time. Thank you ever so much. It is beyond my words to express my gratitude to you all for everything. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your warm words. If international law is the bridge between nations, then institutions like ISIL, SAU are the architects of that bridge, and Professor Dr. Hegde, sir, is one of its most trusted engineers. In the field of international law, some scholars teach it, some research it, some practice it, but a very rare few shape the directions of the discipline itself. Now I request Rutuja Jadhav Madam to introduce our chief guest, Professor Dr. V.G. Hegde, sir.
Thank you, sir. I'm honored to introduce Professor Dr. V.G. Hegde, sir. He is currently working as an Executive President of Indian Society of International Law and also as Editor-in-Chief of Indian Journal of International Law. He was formerly a Professor of International Law and Chairperson at the Center for International Legal Studies, School of International Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. He also taught at the Faculty of Legal Studies, South Asian University on deputation from JNU and had the position of Associate Dean as well. Professor Hegde previously held senior positions at the Asia Africa Legal Consultative Committee, Legal and Treaties Division of Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India. He was member of several Indian delegations to negotiate and implement treaties relating to international trade agreement and bilateral investment agreement. He represented India on the working group of United Nations Commission of International Trade Law. His main area of work relates to international law, international settlement of dispute, intellectual property rights, international trade law, international law and domestic law interface, air and space law, law of international water courses. His writings on all these areas, in particular in the area of IPR and implementation of international law, are highly acclaimed. His work in the area of human rights as part of global collaborative project with 15 different leading universities under the aegis of European Union is well known. He also worked on a project for the United Nations High Commission for Refugees on impact of nationality law on statelessness with specific focus on South Asia. He was a member of high-level task force on the development of Indian nuclear sector under the auspice of Institute of Defense Studies and Analysis, Ministry of Defense, Government of India. Professor Hegde has been a visiting faculty both within India and abroad to several academic institutions. He was Ministry of External Affairs, Indian Council of Cultural Relations visiting faculty at the University of Leuven, Brussels, Belgium. He has been on the Executive Council of Indian Society of International Law and and he headed the Research and Publication Committee. He is also on the editorial committee of Asia Yearbook of International Law. He had been a member of Executive Council of Asian Society of International Law from 2013 to 2020. Professor Hegde continues to be part of various committees and assists the Indian government and also higher judiciary in the area of implementation issues of international law. We are very privileged to have you, sir, with us. I request you to address the gathering.
So, good evening to all of you. And first, let me start by thanking the uh, Maratha Mitra Mandal's Shankar Rao Chavan Law College, Pune, particularly Dr. Kranti Deshmukh and all the colleagues here for inviting me and to be here in Pune. Pune is not a strange place for me. I also literally belong to this part of the world, but little away from here. But I'm quite familiar. But because of professional and other reasons, we have been in Delhi for a very long time. But it's always been a pleasure to come to Pune. Uh, I've come several times. Of course, this is the first time to MMC and Shankar Rao Chavan Law College when my now the teacher here, Professor Dr. Purvi, when called me, I was little hesitant because of various other programs, but she is our former student. But I'm sure it's always difficult to say no to our former students, and I'm sure. So I'm here despite all that other problems, and it has been a great pleasure, listening to the speeches by my colleagues. Of course, I know them as well. Of course, although we have not met, we had a lot of colleagues and friends from Sri Lanka with whom we have worked very closely, which we exchanged notes today in the morning. And of course, we'll continue to do that because being part of the Asian Society of International Law and Asian traditions of international law, here, of course, the topic of the seminar also is very important. We not only need to adopt whatever IHL principles or human rights, there is always a challenge to the Western and European perspective. Also, Dr. Pradeep Kumar is here, and then I mean, he's of course he's very much part of this part of the world. Although he's in Europe, he's been studied in Europe and he's been there, but he's always his heart is here. I think we have spoken quite a lot, and heart is here, and he's supporting many of the initiatives here. That's a great thing, actually. That is an important actually task, and being all of us being from this part of the world, I think it's very important that we also work on topics like this, defending our own interests. Actually, that's important. As already mentioned by again Dr. Pradeep Kumar and other colleagues, Dr. Vasanta, Professor Vasanta, and also Professor Sampath, it is important that way. It is, international law. Always we think that is international law, so we need to study international law in the international law context, etc. That's true up to a point, but it is also important for us. We are here. I mean, as part of the, we have been working on this for a very long time as part of the Indian Society of International Law. Of course, Indian Society of International Law, as we are yesterday, Professor Manoj Kumar Sinha, who is the president of the society, and I am the executive president. Both of us were here at different time scale, but still, Indian Society of International Law, to put one word, it was established by V.K. Krishnamanan and Nehru way back in 1950s. It has a legacy, actually, and it is a very important legacy, post-colonial legacy for us. And studying international law from the perspective of the not only Asian but also South Asian and Indian perspective is very important. So as our teachers and peers put it, it is not just, it is very important for us to study any subject for that matter, particularly international law, from the perspective of our own, actually. So you need to defend your own interest. You have to put up in your international negotiation, which I had an opportunity to do with, again, the great scholars, starting from, I have seen them, of course, you have heard about them perhaps, starting from Judge Nagendra Singh, Professor R.P. Anand, Professor Premtullah Khan. I can go on, Professor V.S. Mani, some of them you must have heard. And Professor Chimney, of course, Professor Tyagi, many of them, Professor Dr. P. Srinivas Rao, who was the World Court judge, etc. There are a number of great scholars, I can go on mentioning, who actually, V.K. Krishnamenon, and earlier, of course, there were M.K. Nawaz, to many of them actually laid the foundations for the, idea of international law in India and South Asia. They all were connected. We spoke about Judge Veeramantri, we spoke about, Bangladesh, Kamal Hussein, one of the greatest international lawyers. South Asia, I can give you number of, all of them had interactions. And even Pune University here had a great international law department under Professor Agarwala. Actually. It's one of the very eminent, in fact, international lawyers of the, we built that department some 40 years. I have met him personally, in fact, guided by him also up to a point. So there is a whole tradition. And University of Madras, for example, had the occasion of having Professor Alexandrovich, who actually was a Polish English scholar, who was brought by the government of Tamil Nadu that time. At that time, Diwan of Chief Minister of Madras, giving him a special status as international law professor. Actually, even today, the University of Madras has constitutional law and international law department, which actually, and then he wrote 10 years he stayed there, and he wrote some of the seminal articles which are now been published by the New York University, and some of them are extremely important. International law in Southeast Asia, and then Mughal sovereignty and international law, Kautilya's Arthashastra and international law. Just name, he, and international law in international law and Southeast Asian nations. So he brought in this perspective of how to look at international law from this part of the world, and he trained number of extremely very important international lawyers, Professor Ramarao, and I can name many of them, but they all actually worked on the same ideas, of looking at regional perspectives of international law, which actually percolated to international negotiations. For example, Professor Anand wrote a book on origin and development of law of the sea. Many of you may not actually understand what he did. He actually challenged the existing notions of Eurocentric. I'm sure my colleagues from Germany, Romania, and Poland are here, but still, we always call it Eurocentric. We challenge always the Euro. It's international is not just Eurocentric. It is Eurocentric up to a point. They said Grotius is the father of international law, which you read. But it's not that international law was not existent in this part of the world. Professor Anand said law of the sea. Law of the sea covers 70% of the global area, and 80% of the global trade actually happens to the sea. So he said, no, international law existed, very much existed in this part of the world. And he did the archival work, and he went to Hawaii and various, he was a product of Yale University. Many of our teachers were all from US and Europe. So we were taught by them on a policy-oriented approach. Then he told us that, yes, it is in India, for example, taking on from what Alexandrovich did. He said Southeast Asia had a large practices of maritime practices relating to international law. So it is not that in 15th century or 16th century, the Grotius who actually said, Grotius did it for a purpose. He did it for giving as a legal advice to the existing kings at that point of time. But here, these practices very much existed in international law, existed in this part of the world. So not only in those, not only law of the sea. I mean, law of the sea. Why I'm mentioning law of the sea? Some of you might know actually that it took nearly 40 years for negotiating a law of the sea convention. United Nations Convention on Law of the Sea took nearly 40 years to settle, crystallize the principles of customary international law. So today we have 12 nautical miles. Today, I'm sure some of you might not be looking at it, but today it's one of the biggest sort of, if you look at trade matters like fisheries subsidies convention, which is coming up with the World Trade Organization, etc., etc., all actually are being negotiated and challenged by the Indian scholars, Indian diplomats, based on statistics, as rightly put by Professor Dr. Pradeep Kumar, that it is based on our national interest, based on our today, in case if we government is negotiating trade deals with United States today, even today, if you look at United States with European Union, we are negotiating a very good thing about it, because obviously states, when they become very insecure, instead of going into multilateral negotiations, we actually tend to take more into bilateral negotiations. That's a natural phenomena which happens in the world. But when you are negotiating, rightly mentioned by my colleagues in the last 3 days seminars, this has been discussed, that we always have to look at how actually we are going to get benefits out of it. There is always a lurking sort of a fear that are we giving more to them, then it will affect our own people, our own farmers, our own national interest. We don't know. So tariffs, we say it's come down, but which are the sectors we are opening? I'm part of the, I'm being there, so I know my colleagues who negotiate these things. It's a very tough call. It's not easy negotiating on tariffs. There are thousands and thousands of items, lakhs perhaps. Which item is going to do what? How is going to benefit us? Which sector we should open? Which sector will help us? It will take time for us to understand how it actually shapes up in the coming years. See, in trade, because it might, after a few years, it might affect our. I'm not talking about of course, elections and democracy problems, political issues are there. I'm sure both sides, both ruling and opposition parties within India, they have to do their work, they do. But at the same time, it is a very, very important for us. The first point I just want to mention, that we need to look at these issues from our own perspective. Whether Asian perspective, certainly, which we are doing. South Asian does certainly, with although our neighbors, including all of us, go through very different stages of developments, political upheavals, all kinds of things happen actually. It's not easy. If you look at our neighbors, I have taught cross sections of students from various, many of them were their students also, in South Asian universities, an idea which was built up by that time by the government. Then we started that. Then it has really helped actually in shaping up the idea of pursuing international law in this particular region. So in that context, I think, let me giving this kind of a little foundational sort of an introduction to what I think about this, or what basically it's not me, it is the legacy which I said, for 70 years of Indian Society of International Law, or even my own center, which is also almost as old as 70 plus years, on which I have written as well in recent times. They have contributed to the idea of developing international law in this part of the world, and people are working on it actually. Now, in that tradition, I'm very happy that the Law College, Shankar Rao Chauhan Law College, Pune, Marathwada Mitra Mandal Law College, which has a legacy also. I'm very happy to see that actually. It has a long legacy of contributing to the legal education, not only legal education, with a purpose to the education in this part of the, in the part of our country. So it's very important that we are discussing a topic with International Conference on Human Rights in Armed Conflicts, Asian and European perspective. And we have colleagues from Asia, colleagues from Europe, and discussing how actually we should look at conflicts in the global context. Sitting in Pune, we must be thinking that why is so important for us. If it's The war is taking place in Ukraine, it's happening there. It's not going to affect us. But don't forget that we are also importing oil from Russia. Not one. We at one point we imported 2 million barrels a day. So, and tariffs came on that. So there is a whole lot of economic interest. Not, it's billions of economic interest, billions of dollars of economic interest, which involved. So we have a stake in all these things. We are talking about Gaza and then Israel. India has a position on this actually. It's a very closely held Indian position on both Palestine and Gaza actually, on Israel. This dates back to 1948 when Israel was created. We can't change that. Even current government, despite its closeness to Israel with other, even with other countries within the region, they have not changed the position. So other point which I want to mention is when we study international law, we can't study or diverse international law from international relations. So there is always this tussle between power and rules. So we our teachers like Professor Chimney and Professor Tyagi always mention that there is power, there is rules. So which one will actually prevail? We have other great stalwarts again in the diplomatic and other international relations side. They said it is a power which rules actually. Power and these days, let me tell you, it's not a good time to speak about international law. Yeah. I have an old friend who is one of the eminent scholars. I don't want to mention his name, but he used to call me asking, very eminent sort of, with whom I worked. He called me one day. He said simply, "This was IPL time. Your international has gone for a 6." He simply said. I said, "Yeah, it has gone for a 6, but international law will catch up actually." So it is not that law always, remains the same. Law will not change. You might say I don't accept the legal principles. Even today, I'm suppose students shouldn't ask, is international law? Is the what is that? The other word is the vanishing point of jurisprudence. I really feel sorry if students still ask those questions. International law is much more than that actually. The Austin called it positive morality at that point of time. But today you need a international system. This is what I tell my friends who actually look at power as a basis, that you need international law because this gives you predictability. Law gives you predictability. When our finance minister Nirmala Sitharamanji presents a budget, you have Fiscal Management Act, which actually tells you that you have to have a fiscal rates fixed. So it is predictability. It provides you, this was brought in sometime in 2006 or 2007, but all governments are adhering to it actually. So there is an important element that we need to have So if you don't have a legal system or a proper arrangements within international law, it doesn't actually help us in predictability. So law, one of the most important elements of law is providing predictability. Now, if you say, I don't care, well, you know who says this, but that's okay. But people have to handle it actually. So power has to go along with the rules. So this is what actually we agree. Now, in the last 3 days, 2 days seminar, we have talked about international human rights in armed conflict, the Asian European perspective. Now, human rights, of course, all of you, now basic understanding, of course, I'll not take much time, maybe another 5-6 minutes, I think. The human rights actually speak about, human rights are the most basic rights actually. It's a human. I asked one of our again, colleagues or teachers who said, when you talk about human rights, we talk about human rights in a very great sort of, something very eulogizing it actually. It's not. Human rights is simply put it, it's a most basic existential right actually. That's what the professor said. A person who is living today at the last end, he has to have a dignity, he has to have basic needs, just give it to him. We are not talking about somebody, something which, very high and dry. No, we are talking about, and it provides for it actually. Human dignity. That's the first point actually, and it applies at all times. Whether there is a written law, no written law, human rights apply. Human rights got codified first time, of course, in 1948 with Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It's a non-binding United Nations instrument, but it embodied the most basic principles which are customary international law and applies to everybody actually, because it is there in your constitution. Article 14, Article 21, you name it. Article 19, they all are there. Our courts, Supreme Court has clearly said in many cases, at one point, even in the Vishaka and subsequent cases, they have said that simply if any international law which is consistent with our basic tenets of the Constitution can be directly applicable actually. That's what the court said. Indian Supreme Court has very clearly said you don't have to have we have a problem of implementation on which I worked for many years. But it said there was always this, our colleagues, lawyers in Delhi, etc., don't accept it. But I said, simply international law is applicable. In case if it is consistent with 21, what is your problem? That's what UDHR says. Everybody has the right to be with the family. Everybody has the right to be, have the dignity. Everybody, you look at UDHR, you look at covenants, 1966. Of course, there is a difference between us and Europeans on where the emphasis is going. So we are talking more about, they want to talk more about socio-economic and cultural rights. We want to talk about civil and political rights. There is a divergence there. There is a divergence with Europeans on many issues, on these issues. European Union, I'm sure, my friend Dr. Pradeep Kumar knows, as a fundamental European Union policy is incorporated in Lisbon Treaty. Lisbon Treaty clearly says human rights is their foreign policy objective. With Indian government, they have gone on to have dialogues on human rights, issues. They have passed resolutions on human rights abuses within India as well, and we have reacted as well to it. But that's their policy. They have mentioned it. They do it for every country. So they have passed, European Union has passed resolutions on, you can go, there is a whole lot of resolutions passed on various atrocities. Even American congressional committees have done that actually. That's a domestic interference in our country's policy. So again, that depends, on how you look at it actually, and again depends on the national interest. So in other words, we have covenants, we have Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and we have torture conventions, we have various sectoral 13 or 14 sectoral human rights conventions, which all deal with human rights areas, including racial discrimination, women's related other issues. There are, of course, we don't like it. We have actually, countries don't have problems. Even Islamic countries have problems. They can put reservations. There is a very excellent article by Professor Yogesh Tyagi on the reservations to human rights treaties in British Yearbook of International Law in 2000. He has 100 plus pages, excellent piece on how countries actually reserve their positions on human rights treaties. We have problems with racial discrimination treaties because there are customs and practices in India which are followed by communities for a very long time. And we can't say that this is discrimination. So there is a problem there, a perception problem actually. Europeans look at it differently, and naturally they come from societies are not monoliths actually. Societies have different kinds of approaches to develop. So Europeans have developed in a particular way, we have developed in our own way. So we have our ways of looking at things, but you should respect that, we should respect yours. So there we have put reservations. Last 30, 40 years, the whole study has been done. So not that we can't. So there is always this particular problem of perception. And secondly, IHL, International Humanitarian Law, is a construct of, with 1856 Battle of Solferino, where, of course, the Henry Dumont went there. He felt very bad about it, the war. Then, of course, he started, it started with the International Committee of the Red Cross and all that story about ICRC. It's a great thing. Geneva Conventions have come up. the whole lot of things have happened in the last 150 years. This is basically to IHL, International Humanitarian Law, is basically not a substantive law. It actually is about to ameliorate the sufferings of the war, in the war actually. And it has combatants. It has got 4 Geneva Conventions. One deals with combatants, another deals with civilians, another deals with the prisoners of war. Then the fourth one deals with the, there are 4 conventions dealing with separate subject matters, very important ones. And it has now almost reached the status of customary international law. Although it is 150 years, it took 150 years, still they are debating how it's going to apply, but it applies in a context. It applies in the context of conflict. But human rights, actually, we started off under the 1930s and 40s, but it has acquired the status of customary international law. It applies at all times. In case if there is a conflict zone, if there is a violation on a human being, then it is a violation, human rights violation. So you link it to ICC, crimes against humanity, crimes, war crimes, aggression. There is no definition. International community had a problem in defining all this because they had different perceptions. Islamic traditions had different perceptions of war crimes, aggression, even to this day, aggression. We're talking about aggression in Ukraine and Russia. Who is Russia is an aggressor. Now there is a whole problem of who is aggressor, who is not an aggressor. So the countries have different viewpoints on all these issues. So obviously we need to understand there are perceptional problems. They are very differently interpreted. So all this have been discussed in the last 3. I have noted down all the important discussions which have happened. But last point is that IHL, International Humanitarian Law, is not that it's not practiced within India. I'm sure my colleague Professor Manoj Sinha must have talked about it because he wrote about it. Professor V.S. Mani wrote about it. There's a very seminal article on the India and the International Humanitarian Law in the ICRC review, where he mentioned that India practiced it. Because if you look at the Ashoka's, dilemma when he actually won the Kalinga War, he won the war, but he lost, the war as well. So after the war, what happens to him? There is a transformation. This is a historical fact. I mean, then he becomes a Buddhist, monk, and he dharma. Yeah. So there is a whole approach to war. When you look at violence, what we look at violence, how it actually happens. So that's very important. This happened some 2,000 years ago. I mean, that's and that tradition is there in Indian. If you look at the Indian traditions, which again I had to quote from Professor Vasanta mentioned. I thought she's going to mention elaborately the classic sort of a elucidation of this has been done by Professor Justice Veeramantri. In his 1996, he referred to it in the Nuclear Weapons Advisory Opinion, dissenting advisory opinion. It is available on the net. All of you can actually go and look at it. It's one of the classic examples of our civilizational traditions, how we look at it actually. And he has quoted from various traditions, including Asian traditions, Buddhist traditions, and it was simply about a question asked by the General Assembly as to whether nuclear weapons can be termed as a legitimate actually. Because why nuclear weapon? Nuclear weapons can actually erase the entire generations in the world actually. So General Assembly asked a question. Earlier World Health Organization asked, but usual United Nations is all equally bureaucratic. They said World Health Organization has no locus standi to ask. So then they went to General Assembly. General Assembly asked the question. Then General Assembly asked the question. Then it went on. Advisory opinion was given. It's one of the classic dissenting opinions, for which I was told that he couldn't become second. We all supported it, but he couldn't become a judge for the second time because of this dissenting opinion. Americans said, we are not going to support you. Because he clearly said nuclear. But what did the judgment say, at the advisory opinion say? Advisory opinion said, it said very cleverly, it said, in case if everything, of course it is not legitimate, but if your hands are tied a state's hands are tied and there is no other alternative, but then they can use it. Because Americans need to be supported somewhere there. Americans have used it in where they have used it, and now they can't go back to it. Iran can say it now. See, look at the international. Iran says it, in case if my hands are tied, you are going to come and put something on. I'm going to use it. North Korea is saying it. So you create precedents. So it's not the first time. I can give you several examples of the American Monroe Doctrine to Harmon Doctrine to many other doctrines which have come up, and Americans have actually repudiated the same on their own because they know it's not going to be consistent. So there are number of such problems with the IHL, but in this part of the world, international humanitarian law, uh, I mean, you look at Mahabharata traditions you have seen. I mean, how to conduct a war. There are whole treatises which has been actually explained in this part of the world. In the Asian context. So, in other words, there is a how ambassadors have to be, negotiations have to be done, ambassadors have to be looked at. So there is a whole lot of material which Professor V.S. Mani's article, which he wrote some before his late Professor Mani, but he wrote a seminal article on which India have practiced international humanitarian law. So I think there is a wealth of material which we should look at it. So I just want to conclude by saying that this is what is my theme today, is that we shouldn't be very apologetic about, not apologetic at all actually, but we have our own perspectives. Asian perspective, certainly South Asian perspective. I worked in both arenas, particularly Japanese and then South, everybody in the Asian context. All of them actually feel the same. Asian society actually has an interest group on this area, history of international law with Asia, where there is a strong sort of a belief that we have. I'll just give you an example and end my speech. I always feel that all of you should read. The first point is to just read Justice Veeramantri's dissenting opinion, and our colleagues have done a lot of work on it, and particularly on his dissenting opinion. PhDs have been done, and where I think all of you should move and study these things. In the last point which I want to mention is that we have the great tradition of looking at these issues in international law, and I'm very happy that the Shankar Rao Chavan Law College, under the stewardship of Dr. Kranti Deshmukh and all the other teachers and colleagues and students, have done a wonderful job. 3 days seminar has actually covered number of issues. I am very happy that on the other point which I noted down here, the impact of technology. Of course, I didn't mention. I have taken more time, but technology has impacted actually the idea of war. How is it going to define the responsibility questions, respondent superior? All these problems will come up, and who created these technologies actually, and who actually is using them? Why are they using them? And it has its own politics. So we need to understand that actually. So a whole lot of issues are available, and we are very happy again, and from the Indian Society of International Law, of course from JNU school, and then with other colleagues, we will be very happy to help and welcome all of you. In case if you contact us, or anytime, we are available. And Indian Society of International Law is located just opposite Supreme Court of India with the Indian Law Institute. They are the two institutes which are located there. All of you are most welcome, and our younger colleagues all will be there to help you, assist you if you need any help. And we'll also be very happy to be amongst with all of you, to be part of this. And then again, I wish all of you the best of luck, and once again thank the law school and every colleagues here for giving me this opportunity to share few of my views. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. And this is what we wanted to hear. Thanks to Dr. Purva Madam for bringing him for our conference. Friends, over 2 days we examine war, conflict, suffering, accountability, yet we leave with hope. Because when scholars meet, dialogue begins. When dialogue begins, understanding grows. And when understanding grows, peace is no longer impossible. Let us remember human rights are not Western, not Eastern, not Asian, not European. They are simply human. Now, I request Dr. Bhagwan Gauri, sir, the coordinator of the event, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon to one and all, respected dignitaries on the dais, of the dais, and dear students. It is my privilege to propose a vote of thanks on this occasion. I, Dr. Bhagwan Gauri, on behalf of Shankarao Chauhan Law College, extend a very hearty vote of thanks to the chief guest of valedictory function and a teacher's teacher, Professor V.G. Hegde, Executive President, Indian Society of International Law, New Delhi, India, for sharing his experiences and knowledge with us. Thank you so much, sir. I take this opportunity to thank the guest of honor of today's program, Professor Sampath Puchiheva, Dean, Faculty of Law, University of Colombo, Sri Lanka, for his inspirational words. It was pleasure and privilege to host you, sir, in India. Thank you so much. I must thank the guest of honor, Senior Professor Vasanta Sineviratne, eminent scholar from Faculty of Law, University of Colombo, Sri Lanka, for guiding and sharing her words with us. Thank you, ma'am. I am thankful to one of the organizer of this international conference, Dr. Pradeep Kumar, founder president, Indian Indo-European Educational Foundation, Poland, for all types of support and guidance he has provided to us. For the success of this event, he has taken lot of efforts. So thank you so much, sir. I must mention a deep sense of appreciation to the galaxy of scholars and resource person for this conference who had made this conference a truly international one. Professor Manoj Kumar Sinha, Vice Chancellor, Dharmashastra National Law University, Jabalpur, India. Colonel Lalit Rai, Senior Army Officer. Professor Vijay Khare, Dean, Faculty of Humanities, Savitribai Phule, Pune University. Pune, Dr. Thorald Gebel and Madam Gebel, University of Applied Sciences, Mitvida, Germany. Dr. Hakim Sir, Faculty of Law, University of Colombo, Sri Lanka. Ms. Elena Bujor, Department of Communication, Promotion and Public Relations, University of Galati, Romania. Mr. Pavel Taila, attorney from Poland. Major General Shishir Mahajan, Senior Army Officer, and Professor Ashutosh Naik, Associate Professor from Tilak Maharashtra University, Pune. I thank each one of them. Dear all, Principal B.G. Jadhav sir, Honorable Executive President of Marathwada Mitra Mandal, is real source and guiding light behind this event. Thank you, sir, for everything, for his guidance, for his support. I am also grateful to Shri Kishore Mungde sir, Honorable Secretary, Marathwada Mitra Mandal, for his guidance, which he always make available that everything is with us. Thank you, sir. I must congratulate and thank all the participants from around the world, offline, online, for their participation and for making this conference a grand success. I take this opportunity to thank our sponsors, Advocate Dr. Prasad Abhanga sir, Director Lex Credence, Pune, and Srinivasa Kola, Director Aromas Hyderabadi House, Pune. I am also thankful to Dr. Kanti Deshmukh, Principal Shankarao Chauhan Law College, for the support and guidance which is available for all of us for every program. Thank you, ma'am. I am also thankful to organizing committee of this conference, the faculty members and non-teaching staff of my college. Without their active support, this event would not have been possible. And last but not the least, our very dear student volunteers who had put lot of efforts for the success of this event. I request all of you to please give big round of applause for all of them. My heartfelt thanks to all of them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. As we are here to end the session, strength comes from the unity and simple, powerful, universal, just like human rights themselves. Today, Marathi spoke, Sinhala echoed, Polish resonated, German affirmed, but the message was one: human dignity, human rights, human unity. May our collaborations continue, may our research deepen, may our friendships strengthen, and may law always remain the voice of humanity. Thank you, everyone. Jai Hind, Jai Poland, Jai Germany, Jai Sri Lanka. Thank you. Now, before you encash your last coupon of high tea, I request all of you to stand in respect of national anthems of Romania, followed by Sri Lanka and India.
We will have Poland, India, Poland, Sri Lanka, and India.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जनगण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
Thank you, everyone. I declare the session is over. I request the participants to be seated. So dignitaries may leave first.
Volunteers are requested to gather for a photo outside Naneshwar Hall. Faculties are also requested to join.